Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wine Talk Wednesdays. My name is Clay Wheeler. I'm a certified sommelier, here to talk to you about some wines. We're going to be doing this every Wednesday, so be sure and tune in. Go to YouTube and go to our channel. You can find it probably on Facebook and also on our website. So today, I'm really excited. I want to talk to you about a wine that I'm very fond of. Wine called Chateau Musar. Comes to us from the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon. So pretty interesting to come from a different region that we don't talk about a whole lot, but is very, very influential in the wine world. A little bit of history of Lebanon, first and foremost. So winemaking there can date back to 5000 BC. There's not any recorded documentation of it, unfortunately, but there were some amphora pots that were found, which is the vessels that they used to age wines in, to create wines in as well. And then there was references during the Greek and Roman times in their plays and in their poetry and things of that nature that are referencing wines of the Phoenicians. Fun little fact: Phoenicians were known for bouncing back quickly from disasters, whatever that might entail for them, but bouncing back quickly from disasters and building back up and getting back to a status quo, which is where the term phoenix came from. So kind of a fun little thing for them. So they started a lot of winemaking practices and were influential for the entire Mediterranean on how to make wine, and not just to make wine, but to make wine not only palatable, but to make it tasty as well, which of course is a very important thing, especially for nowadays, because we want to drink wine that's tasty, not just wine that's palatable. So we want to, they want to showcase the wines and show them to around the world. So they're influential for the Romans and the Greeks, for eventually the Italians, for the French, the Spanish. All throughout the Mediterranean, Egypt, they were known for their wines. So, very, very influential. Actually, the first recorded history of winemaking practices in the world. So, very rich history in that area. So, Lebanon is in the Mediterranean. It's in the far east of the Mediterranean. So, about far east you can get in the Mediterranean. It is bordered on the south by Israel, on the east by Syria, and then on the north by Turkey. It has a valley that runs right down the middle of it, kind of southwest or northeast to southwest. So it kind of runs if you go north to south, it runs in a southwesterly direction, just a touch. But that's how the coastline is leveled, and that's how it's set up. You have two mountain ranges that run through there that are, again, influential for the Bekaa Valley for it being there. On the west coast, you have the Mount Lebanon, which is right there on the west coast. That's influential for maintaining weather patterns and rain and things from not coming in and making the area overly wet, and helps to maritime mediate the climate in that area. And then on the east, you have the anti-Lebanon, which is influential for not having those hot, dry winds coming through from the desert areas in Syria. So you've got a nice, lovely valley run through the middle. That's the Bekaa Valley. They are located in an area called Gazir, which is right there in the heart of the Bekaa Valley. So this is Chateau Musar. They were started in the 30s. By Gaston Hochar. Their family still makes the wine. His children are still a part of it. He passed away in, I believe, 2014. But his family's still doing that. One of his sons is a winemaker. I personally met one of his other sons, Mark Hochar, really great guy. Showed me these wines, showed me how great and how fantastic they are. I'm showing you a white and a red. They make several other wines. This is their flagship wines. They make a white, a red, and a rosé. But I want to showcase these wines because these are really their flagship wines. They're the wines that people know them for and should be known. Definitely the red for sure. but increasingly more of the white, because to me the white is one of the better whites that I've had thus far. So one of the cool things about this area too is that they have full seasons. So it snows in the fields. It's wild to see that you see fields with snow in it, and you see these. They don't use any kind of trellising systems. They use bush vines. So what we're used to seeing is having those lines that have the vines growing up or growing up this way or growing up and out. They don't use anything. It's just this really long, big kind of trunk, and then it grows out kind of randomly, but they're in nice, neat little lines. So they're bush trained, and the reason why they do that is it is a warmer climate there, especially during the growing season, during the harvest season. So they want to make sure that that there's not too much exposure from the sun, and making sure that that's got some nice leaf cover over those grapes to not get sunburned, because grapes can get sunburned. So really interesting to see these big kind of bush vines that actually are shaped like a bush. And then have snow over the top of that, especially during their winter times where it can get cold there. So let's talk about this wine, the white wine, really quickly. So it's just, they call it a white wine. It is 100% indigenous grape variety. So the grapes only come from this region. I haven't seen them anywhere else outside of Lebanon. They are very closely related to 3 other grapes in the world. They haven't really figured out if they have a parentage. I'll have to look up in my grapes book from Jancis Robinson if they are closely related, but they seem to be related, but we're unsure of. The grapes in this wine are Obadiah and Merwa. They are closely related to Chardonnay, and they're closely related to Semillon, and then closely related to Chasselas. So Chardonnay we know from Burgundy, of course. Semillon we know from white Bordeaux, so wines from Sauternes, from Barsac, that kind of area, Graves area in Bordeaux, and then Chasselas you can find in France, you can find it in Germany, but probably most prominently is in Switzerland. So this is speaking of Bordeaux. This is very often categorized similar to a dry Sauternes. So if you ever had a chance to try Y, which is the dry Sauternes from Chateau Musar, I highly recommend trying that. Super delicious, not unlike this wine. So Chateau Musar white wine. It's Marwe and Obida. It's they're strange words. Obida and Merwa. Sorry, Merwa and Obida. This comes from a 2009 vintage. It spends 9 months in new French oak that comes from an area called Nevers, which is right in the center, in the heart of France, for French oak. Spends 9 months in there, and then spends another 4 years minimum in bottle. But then it's released 7 years after its pick date. So this one's pretty close to its release date. The 2012 vintage, I think, was the most recent vintage that they have out right now. But the 2009 I thought was a little bit nicer. So let's get into the wine a little bit. One of the things too to know about this wine is it's up in the mountains in the like 1,400 meter, so like 3,000 feet above sea level. It's pretty high up. Now, the reason why that's important is because they want to preserve acidity. So the higher up you get in altitude, you get a little bit cooler. You get more structure with higher altitudes because you're up on a hill as well, and that drainage from the water causes the vines to dig deeper into the soils and give it more structure, a little more power, and not so overly fruity. Like you can find in a valley somewhere. While this is a valley, this particular wine is grown up in elevation. So one of the things that I love about this wine, if you can see in the video, the color alone is absolutely gorgeous. It's this kind of like pale gold color. Part of that's due to its age, probably a little bit of that's due to the grape varieties as well. having a little bit of color. Um, Great wine. First thing that pops out to me is truffle. It sticks out with this kind of beautiful truffle earthiness. It's also got a lot of herbaceousness and a lot of vegetable qualities. The fruit character is still bright and still vivacious, but it's more kind of sweet citrus, so like a Meyer lemon, and not that super bright lemon or like sour lemon, things like that. It's got a little bit of a red delicious apple character as well, but it's really clean and really pretty, and it's got that earthy component, and it's got all that stuff going on. Now, one of the things that I really like about this wine is, if you can't tell, it's got really elevated acidity, because I'm smacking a lot. So it's got an elevated acidity for one. That just makes it more refreshing. Think about the perfect lemonade on a hot summer's day in Texas. That finding that perfect lemonade, that perfect balance. It is not sweet; it's dry, almost bone dry, but it's dry. But it's mouthwatering, with that really elevated acidity. But it's also super round, really mouth coating, really round. It's got some nice malolactic characteristics. So that conversion of lactic acid, I'm sorry, of malic acid to lactic acid. So it's got this great component of that round mouth feel. Super delicious. Still those same kind of characteristics, that truffle, kind of more of a forest floor character on the palate. Sorry, my phone is ringing. That's really rude on the video camera, but I'm not going to stop. Got to keep going. Because funny enough, this is the third time that I've recorded this video, so I'm not stopping now. Really delicious. Cannot go wrong with this wine. Definitely one of the more unique wines that I've had, and one of the tastiest for sure. So it's on our wine list for $112. And right now we're doing, during this time frame, we're doing 20% off our entire wine list. So you can get it for about $23 off or so. Highly recommend it. Super delicious, great wine to try and taste, especially during this kind of getting into the warmer season. Definitely recommend it. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the red wine. So the red wine, this one comes to us from 1997. Now, for them, 1997 was a perfect year. It was not too cold during the springtime when those buds were breaking. They had no hail. They had no issues through it. It was kind of a perfect year. And not only was it a perfect year, but they said the fermentation was the best fermentation that they've ever had in the history of the winery. So that's saying a lot, especially being from the 30s. Having that history, and then have 97 being the best fermentation in the history of the wine, is pretty spectacular. So this is a blend of 3 grapes, none of which are indigenous. You have Cabernet Sauvignon, you have Carignan, and then you have Sancerre. So Cabernet Sauvignon we know from Bordeaux, from Napa. This particular brand, this winery is heavily influenced on Bordeaux. Gaston Hochard, who was the founder, he spent a lot of time in Bordeaux, went with a lot of different winemakers in Bordeaux, a lot of high houses, to learn the ways, and then to kind of mimic that and bring it over to Lebanon to create and recreate in their kind of image, if you will. So this is very Bordeaux style. So you've got Cabernet Sauvignon in there. You've got Carignan. Carignan you can find in the south of France. You can find in Sicily and Italy. You can find in Spain. Spain's the proverbial home for it, for Carignana. You can find it in Carignana. You can find it in Priorat, and several different places in Spain. Spain's kind of the proverbial home for it. And then you have Sanso. Sanso is very important for the south of France. It's a blending grape in Châteauneuf-du-Pape in the south of Rhone. It's usually a predominant grape variety in rosés for Provence and for the Languedoc-Roussillon. Also red wines in the Languedoc-Roussillon. You can find Minervois in areas like that. So you've got that blend in here. Again, 1997, great year for them. So this is 97. So this is 23 years old. Still very bright, still very vivacious. You can see a little bit in the color. It's got a little bit of a brick, almost a little bit of a burnished rim on there. So it's getting a little bit of age, and it's starting to kind of clear up as it gets to the center, or as the center gets out to the core. So it's got some age on it. You can tell right off the bat. But on the nose, it's still very, very bright, still very vivacious. You've got red raspberry. There's a wild strawberry in there, black cherry, and then a pretty strong aniseed, or like anise, like black licorice kind of character. And it is showing its age a little bit, which is kind of nice because you've got these really bright, round fruits that are sticking out, that are really, really nice. But then you've also got these secondary and tertiary characters that are coming on from age. You've got some leather, you've got some tobacco. That dried forest floor is definitely there. So like dried leaves, imagine like a bunch of leaves that have been sitting out really dry over time. Dried forest floor, really, really pretty. Cedar box. It's a little bit of clove. So this spends, so those three grape varieties, it spends 12 months in cement, and they're separated. So they're not blended together yet. They're separated into separate vats for 12 months. And then after that, then they're blended together to make a final blend, and then put into barrel for an additional 12 months, and then finally put into bottle, and then not released for a total from beginning to end for 7 years. So approximately 5 years or so, more or less, in bottle before released. They actually have wines from the red wines in their cellar in Gazir from 1954, going all the way to 1954. And from what I've been told, especially from Marc Cochard, is that they can age forever. That 54 is probably just as good as the 97 is, probably just as good as the 2012 is. They've got so much aging potential. They don't know how long it can go because they haven't been a winery for 100 years yet. So it's kind of crazy. Let's taste it real quick. So that same kind of thing is, it's got this really elevated acidity, as you can tell, again, smacking. Really, really elevated acidity. Makes it really refreshing, really tasty. And then you've got this nice roundness to it. The tannins are supple. They're very soft. They're there. They're definitely there. They've got some grip to them, but they're not gritty. They're very, very fine, very refined tannins on this wine. Still, that's those same kind of fruits. That really nice wild strawberry, which is one of my favorite things in this wine, is the wild strawberry, which I think comes from that Sanso, honestly. You've got the black cherry, the red raspberry. You've got that anise character definitely sticking out, and then of course those leather components, the cedar box, that tobacco, the dried forest floor. It's a really tasty wine. It's quite vivacious for 97. I'm not a huge fan of older wines, but I would drink this often, because it doesn't show. It shows its age a little bit, but not too much. So super tasty. Highly recommend that one. This one is on our wine list for $150, and again, you get that 20% off, so that would put it at $120 for the total for that wine. Great wine, great region. It's got tons of history dating back to really, I mean, antiquity and the beginnings of wine and winemaking, at least at at a understandable capacity and commercial capacity of way we should make some wine, and we could probably make some money off of making and selling these wines. Great family making it, highly recommended, super great wines. Be sure and like us on Facebook. Be sure and subscribe and like this video, so that way you can see whenever we do more videos on this in the future. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure and look also on our webpage for other events that we have going on, and we look forward to seeing you again. Cheers.